Hello friends and welcome. I'm Sarah Liz and I am back with a fun and easy card project that I'm going to use for a masculine birthday. We're making a pizza pocket, my friends. Here's how it works. I have a little pizza down in the bottom corner and inside are two little mini pizza note cards. All of these have the favorite toppings of my husband and my two boys, and I think it's going to be so much fun. So I am starting off by making my background. This is the double line check background stamp, and I am stamping it in black ink onto some white cardstock, and I'm going to heat emboss this. So I have used a black pigment ink that will stay sticky just a little bit longer, and then this is just clear embossing powder. When I'm embossing on a really big panel like this, I'm very methodical. I start in one corner and I go in lines. Otherwise, I end up with spots that aren't melted, and that's no fun. Then I am creating a pattern in my background stamp. I am creating a diagonal line. Ultimately, I will color in all of the small boxes and then some of the big boxes. Look, this is the long way, but this is what I had. I knew I wanted that sort of red and white check pizza parlor feeling. You could do this instead with the check stencil. It would go much faster. You could use pattern paper. There's lots of ways. As I was coloring, I made a boo-boo on one end. So I started using these little like removable stickers. I put these on my dies so I know if something new came in and I haven't used it yet, just to kind of let me know. But you could use little pieces of like Post-it note or anything like that. There's my boo-boo. We're going to cover that up. Don't worry about it. This is the Every Pizza Me stamp, and this is going to be the big sentiment on the front, and I'm going to heat emboss this one as well. So just some Versamark ink onto black cardstock, and then I'll use white embossing powder for this one. I'll melt this very carefully to make sure that that white powder doesn't get overheated and sort of sink into the paper. I like it to be nice and crisp, a little bit raised and super glossy. There is in the coordinating die set a die that will bubble cut around this for a perfect cut, but it also includes all kinds of pieces to make pizza toppings, which I love. It is the perfect complement to this circle shaped card die set. So I cut out a 4 1/4 inch circle, and then I cut out my sauce and my cheese. My sauce has a hole in it because this die set can be used to make a pizza or a donut. You could make this same card, but with a donut in the bottom corner, and then use the tiny donut dippers as your little mini cards. So this is just a little preview of that little mini pizza card. It's going to tuck right in there. I have decided to do some ink blending on here. This is going to be a card from my husband, and I know he's going to keep it for a really long time. So I am just adding some extra touches, but you could skip a lot of this. I'm using a super light hand and adding just a little bit of brown on top of the cheese layers. And then to make my mini card, I folded some craft cardstock in half. And when I cut that heart, I'm going to make sure part of the die is hanging over the edge. So that edge isn't cut and I still have a fold in there. This is the crust of my pizza and I want it to look nice and crispy. So I'm adding a little bit of that same brown ink. And then on my teeny tiny sticky mat here, I am just doing some really quick ink blending on some pepperonis and then some green peppers. This is just like quick, easy, slap some ink on it. For the onions, I'm going around the outside edge with my purple marker so it looks like a purple onion, but you could cut it twice, once from purple and once from white. So you truly have like a couple layers that are different colors. I have a bunch of mushrooms and we're going to turn some of them into little chicken pieces. So I am just going around the very corners of some of these mushrooms with a medium brown ink. That's my E220 from Ohuhu. And then I'm using a Crayola colored pencil I stole from my son to just go over the very, very edges, just for some layers of color. For the actual mushrooms, I am just doing a really quick wash of some ink. I'm trying not to color the entire mushroom brown, but just some pieces of it. To cut my chicken pieces, I'm using reverse tweezers to hold that mushroom. And the first piece I will cut off is the stem, and I'm just trying to round it out. Okay, that's the easiest one to me. And then I will take the remaining part of the mushroom and just try to turn them kind of into triangles. They are not fancy. They are not perfect. It does not matter. I want 5 chicken pieces and that's it. It'll be enough. So here's the stamp set. You have the die to cut out the sentiment and the stamped pizza, but then we have our mushrooms. We made our chicken pieces out of mushrooms. I have the onion here, and then I have cut out some additional pieces. There are some small donut sets that coordinate, and the sprinkles on my donut cuts out a ton of sprinkles. So I cut the round ones from some brown for like little sausage pieces, but you could stamp those as well using the A-GLAZE-ing Stamp Set, which is super funny. This is the Happy Little Tree Farm set, and it's one of my all-time favorites, and I'm gonna steal the faces. They're just so cute. You do not need that to make something like this. I will give you alternatives as we're moving along, but I'm gonna start by putting faces on my little pizzas. I cut out the faces using black cardstock, and I put some rip and stick sheet behind it, so they're little stickers. And I love these little eyeballs here, and there's a little indentation that I want to be black. So I'm just sticking my fine liner pen in there to make it black. And then I used an eyebrow from another one to make this little smirk of a smile. This is gonna be the little mini card from my youngest son who has a little bit of trouble in him. And then this is gonna be the pizza for my older son who is just the funniest thing. He's great. They're both great, but I felt like a squinty smile with a big old grin really fit him. I used one of those eyes as the smirk on pizza number 1. So if I don't have ribbon stick sheet, I can just put a little glue on using my pokey tool, and that means it won't go all over everywhere. This first pizza is a chicken pizza. It is his all-time favorite. I don't know if you have this particular take and bake pizza place near you, but we're adding some green onion with marker and then 5 of our chicken pieces, and I am just going to scatter those all around. I knew I needed to do the faces first just so there was room for everything, but this worked out nicely. That circle card die set also has like bagel sprinkle seeds, maybe sesame seeds, and I used those to cut some tomatoes as well. And I'm going to add all of those on there, and then finally some little bits of onion. The onion's a little big for this guy, so I'm putting it only on the edges and I'm trimming around it just to help hide sort of how disproportionate that is. If you don't have Happy Little Tree Farm to make the face, you certainly could just draw the face on there. That's really easy. Or there are olives in this pizza maker set, and you could use the olives to create some eyes, which I think would be tons of fun. Or the Very Cute mug set and the cat and dog add-ons have a bunch of face pieces too. Those might work better on the larger pizza, but it gives you tons of options. I like that you get that same texture of a die cut piece of paper for the faces when you do it this way. So the first pizza was the tricky one. This one is super simple. Tons of dots of glue, a bunch of pieces of sausage, and some mushrooms. Now we can work on the fun part, the pocket for our card. So I have my circle in the bottom corner, but I want to make sure there's plenty of room for that sentiment. So I'm just kind of laying everything out really carefully now. And once I think it looks good, I'm going to temporarily tape that circle onto my card base and flip it over. And I'll just draw some pencil lines to remind me of where I want this to fold and wrap around the back. Okay, so here I am. I brought in my scoreboard. I don't want to have to erase the pencil, so I put some mint tape right along that line, and then I'll flip it over and I can just line up the mint tape with the score line and I can create my fold. I'm going to bring this to my card, double check it. I want to make sure that this is a 90-degree angle if I can. So I'm actually going to add my tape based on the card and not my pencil line for this second one. Then I'll do kind of the same thing, but I'm bringing that first fold right up to the top of the scoreboard to get it started, again, to make sure I have that 90-degree angle. Here's the thing. I'm using 100-pound cardstock because it's my favorite craft cardstock. If I was using 80-pound, I would just use my fingers to bend it and wrap it around that card base, but this was just a little too stiff, so this is how I got around it. I'm clipping out that little piece in the corner right along the score lines, and then those will fold back and you can see how nice that is. When I went to add it to my card, I felt like it was a little bulky, so I actually removed a little bit more, right? I mitered those cuts just a little bit to make sure nothing's gonna stick out on the side or the bottom. To add this to my card, I'm adding a little bit of wet glue on one piece first, and I will wrap that around my card. It's snug, but it's not super, super tight. I do want there to be room for my mini cards in there. And then I will wrap the bottom piece as well. And I'm just kind of moving everything and gluing fairly quickly so that there's a little bit of wiggle room even as I glue down that second piece. I double checked, my little pizzas still fit, but I'll wait because we want to finish decorating this pizza on the front. Remember, this die set does double duty for donuts. And so here's the frosting to your donut, which I think is so much fun. But we're going to cover that up with the cheese. No one's ever going to know there's a hole in it. When I go to trim this off, I'm going to use my scissors and I'm going to be really careful. I don't want to cut a hole in the pocket, but I also don't want that craft cardstock showing on the front of the card. So instead of butting my scissors all the way up against the card, I am leaving just a little sliver. You can see it there of that red cardstock showing, and that's going to work beautifully. I will do the same thing with my cheese. If you wanted, instead of decorating this big pizza, you could cut out a bunch of pizza toppings with rip and stick sheet on the back and put the toppings inside the pocket. Especially for kids, that would be so much fun, and they can make their own pizza like it's an interactive card. I am definitely doing that. My two little boys are going to birthday parties all the time, and I am in constant need of fun cards for boys, and I think this is a really great option. I'm going to add a ton of dots of glue, and then we're just adding our toppings. I started with the same little like sausage pieces that I added to my little pizza. But again, those weren't really intended for this die set. They came from the Springles. And so they felt a little small to me. We will fix that later. Then I'm adding my pepperonis and my mushrooms. I want to make sure that some of these are hanging off the edge so it doesn't look weird like we only decorated or added toppings to part of the pizza. For the onions and the green peppers, they're really thin and I wanted them to be sort of scattered but together. So I laid them on my pizza and then I put a sticky mat in the corner of my card and I picked them up. Then I did something silly and I flipped over my card and my mat. I'm going to struggle to find my corner again. But once I do, I have glue on all those pieces. I'll set it right back in the bottom left-hand corner, press it down, and then I gave it a minute. It looks really quick here, but I let that sit for probably a minute and a half to make sure everything was stuck down really well. And then all of my toppings are in place. These are the bigger pieces of, I don't know, hamburger or sausage or whatever that are in that die set, and they worked really well here. So I just added dollops of glue and those to my pizza. And then here are the olives. You can see how these would work really well for eyes or making like a little mouth even. So I will add those with some rip and stick sheet because they're so small. I'm going to go ahead and add this to top folding A2 card base, but side folding would work too here. And I've got a bunch of glue on the back. I really want this held in place nicely since there could be some pressure on that big pizza as we're pulling the cards in and out. And then I have over adhesed my sentiment. I don't want it to go anywhere. Tons of foam and then some wet glue. It's really thin. It's 1 millimeter foam. But the pizza has a little bit of dimension, especially when you put the little cards in there. And so I wanted that to pop up a bit too. Here are our mini cards. I have a sausage and mushroom pizza and then a creamy garlic chicken pizza. And that finishes up our card for today. You guys, I had so much fun with this. I would love to know, do you already have this die set? Would you give this a try? I just think it's super fun. And then my kids can write in the cards. Let me know what you think. And if you have ideas for other circle pocket cards like this, I want to know about them. Thank you so much for spending your time with me. And I will see you next time.